What's up? Welcome to a new episode of Schmovie. This is episode number 433. My name is Steve. I'm one of the co-hosts of the show, and as always, I'm joined by
Ron.
You're a shitworm. You make me sick. I'm John.
Yep. John is the shitworm.
No, I'm the guy who calls people a shitworm.
Oh, my bad.
Unless
take
this
that
is a
power
rubber
away
and
from
glue
you.
situation where what I say bounces off of you and then sticks to me, which honestly, if that's ever happened to you, it is so embarrassing when that happens.
It's not a good moment to be in, for sure.
I always check to see if this is the whole rubber and glue thing before I insult somebody. It's just a safe way to go.
Yeah.
It's hard to do that all the time, though. It's like that's a lot of work.
You just put your finger in the air and...
No, I'll just say, I'm more blunt than that, Ronald. I'll say, are you like rubber and I'm like glue? And if they're like, what? No? Then I'm like, okay, good. You're a piece of shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how you guys doing? Good, hopefully?
As good as I can be.
Yeah, Ronald, keeping your body together, your health together?
Keeping my body together. Yeah, trying in these days and times.
Better than not, so that's good.
For sure. Happy birthday, Aaron.
Yes.
Recording today is my wife's birthday.
And so you know she's the most patient person in the world already, right?
Yeah. No, for real. Like, I don't know how she puts up with me, man. Sometimes I feel like I'm not quite a grown up, and she is a full adult, full of adultness. And
I married one of those too, one of those adult women.
Yeah, it's wild.
I mean, thank goodness for it.
Yeah.
I've always said that if we were both like me, we would be sitting on a mattress with no box spring, like throwing cards into a hat as like some fluorescent light blinks outside.
I get you.
But we'd be happy. That's my theory. That we'd be
there
happy.
you go.
That's how I feel too. Yeah, I'm very very ideology about our happiness and my childishness.
You bring balance to the force.
I'd like to believe that. Let her tell it. I don't know if I do.
Well, frankly, it's her birthday, so we're going to go with her version of events.
She gets that today.
Yeah, it's her truth, man. It's all that matters. It's really good to see you guys. It's been a little extended absence, man. I've been sick and holidays. And how's everybody's Thanksgiving?
That was good.
Good, man.
Mine was extremely low key, but that was fine.
Yeah, I'd probably say the same. There was some craziness with a family member that it had an injury in making Thanksgiving dinner that kind of set the day in a little bit of a whirl. But it's a good story, and everybody's okay, and the food was good. So at the end of the day, everything's fine.
Oh my God, was it a deep fried turkey or something?
No, it was a can of cranberry sauce.
Got cut
deep.
Oh, God.
Yeah, to the point that my brother-in-law and his girlfriend were basically in a hospital all day on Thanksgiving.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's brutal.
Was it like one of those screams where like, I didn't go
well, actually,
there.
we weren't there yet when it happened. We just got a call like, oh my God, can you come over? Like, she hurt herself really bad, and they're going here, and we're going here, and they have a 11-month-old that we hung out with there and took watched while they were there. It was a bit of a whirl, but yeah, everybody's good.
Good.
Made the best of it, and it was a nice day in the end, and she's fine. She'll be fine.
Great. That's good to hear.
But definitely a good story.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I like Ronald. You set him up perfectly, Ronald, by guessing the more likely way to get hurt on cooking something for Thanksgiving. The twist of the can. But you could tell, Steve, when you said that, we both felt it because anytime I open a can, I'm aware that I could probably
you're playing with fire.
But like there's a near death scenario that could come out of it if I'm not careful. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. But yeah, man, otherwise doing well. Just was telling Ronald before we started getting on this call that for the recording, just trying to like see a lot of stuff, catching up on stuff. I feel like it's constant catch up, I guess in general in my life in terms of movie going, TV watching, anything like that. But it's a time of year where with my day job, like, we have to use our time or lose our time. So I'm taking time and trying to go see some movies in theaters when I can, watch some stuff at home when I have more opportunity on days off, things like that. So I've just been trying to watch a lot. There's a lot of stuff.
It's like you work at Boardwalk Fries.
Yeah, basically.
Constant catch up.
Constant catch up wherever you look. It's just like, you need it, I got it. But yeah, I don't know. So yeah, I just spent a lot of time, way more time in the theater the last 7 days than I probably have all year, which is, exciting for me.
No, I know that feeling. I'm not quite where I want to be with my viewing, but I did this week start to realize, the things that are hitting streaming are the things I've been excited about, and a few things that I finally made time for. And so I'm ready for this this push we were just talking about. In fact, maybe we should tip our hand to our listeners, since we've sort of called this already. We're going to try something a little different this year, right? For our year-end list.
I think we should.
Yeah.
Normally, folks, what we do is we wait until the next year when all of the movies we might want to put on our year-end list have come out, and so we give a much more complete look at the films of the year. This year, we want to do a little bit more. We see all these other people putting out their top 10 of the year list, so we're getting a little jealous because we don't get to do that until like March, the way we normally do it. So yeah, we're going to try to. It might not be as complete and as exhaustive as our usual year-end list, but we're going to try to get out an episode before the end of the year that is our collective, well, not our collective, our individual top 10s, which if you're a new listener, we've done this not quite every year. We took a break for a few years, but we came back, I think, last year or the year before. So this will be a slightly different approach. We'll be only talking about the movies we were able to see in the calendar year, because we're not the fancy critics who get advanced screenings. We sometimes get in a promotional screening, but at this time of the year, there's too much. And a lot of the movies that are finally coming out for us to even see at an advanced screening, like critics have seen those at festivals earlier in the year, or
for sure. Yeah.
The year before, even, Ronald, you were saying sometimes for some movies, so.
You know what I realized through talking to other people about this? It's like a rich person being like, they're taxing us to death because we have so much access that a lot of other people don't have, that we're complaining about a luxury. But it really does make a difference in the way that we present our stuff, like a lot of those venues. And some of it is just solely locational. Like if somebody's in LA,
right,
they tend to get more, if we were in LA, we get media credentials, we'd probably be going to more screenings, or New York. But typically it seems like LA seems to get the chunk of everything.
If we were in LA, we'd be running the country.
From LA.
From LA.
We would have moved DC out. The White House, pick it up, move it. We'd be doing the whole thing.
Yeah, it'd be called Schmovie.
It would actually just be Schmovie Studios. That's the new White House. Yeah.
Those fucking guys.
Yeah, and instead of the Hollywood Hills, they would call them the Schmovie Bumps.
The Schmovie Bumps.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I get that.
So yeah, that'll be fun. Get it done before the end of the year. Everything we've seen. And it'll leave us some opportunity to catch up on stuff that we didn't get to see before the end of the year. We'll just kind of see that stuff when it's available, like it's available for most people in this country or worldwide. Whether it's on streaming or in a rollout release in theaters or whatever it may be. But
it's also, if you like trash movies, that's a higher likelihood that trash movies will end up on our top 10 list.
I think it's been a pretty good year.
It has been.
I kind of was like ranking it out as we were talking about it earlier on my letterbox, and I was like, "There's actually some pretty." And I have no doubt that like you got it. You got to the point, John, about like there's probably gonna be like 3 or 4 movies that we probably don't even know would be a run for our top 10 that we see in the first couple months of the year that are 2024 releases. But even for the stuff that's been out, there's a lot that came out in the first half of the year that I think is still going to be on my top 10 list.
No, there were a lot of different kinds of interesting movies this year.
Yeah, so that's good.
So, yeah. I think you could say that about just about every year, but I do think this year there's been a handful of movies that are sort of like, oh wow, this might be one of my favorite movies of the year, and it's just a wild movie in my mind that's in that spot. So yeah, I'm excited to have that convo.
Cool. Mm-hmm. Let's go into required viewing. John, this is your week, your pick. You want to remind us what you chose and maybe jump into the convo?
Yeah, I chose Akira Kurosawa's film from 1958. The Hidden Fortress, which I had always been curious about because it was a Kurosawa film that I'd heard many people say was like like an early example of like an adventure film in almost kind of a modern sense, you know. But also I had heard of it referenced as specifically something that inspired George Lucas for Star Wars. I think there's a couple things that make it really apparent when you watch the movie, the elements that were inspirational to him. But what I think is really interesting is that supposedly the earlier drafts of Star Wars were even more like The Hidden Fortress. And that, you know, as you often hear about the development of Star Wars, people came in and were like, no, George, do it this way or try this or whatever. And the movie became a little bit less, I think it just covered less story and took a different route. But what they ended up doing was retaining some of those elements for The Phantom Menace. So when George Lucas went back to write The Phantom Menace, he reused some of those other elements from The Hidden Fortress. And I think you can really see the element of the sort of secret princess, the person who nobody knows, and they're using their secrecy or their secret identity as a way to maneuver around. I think it's handled more interestingly in The Hidden Fortress. But I do think that element is there. And then the other big element that I think inspired George Lucas that I guess will be my entree into talking about this movie is the existence of these two characters in Star Wars. It's C-3PO and R2-D2, but who are sort of like not part of the main story in a weird way, but they're observers to the main story. I think in Star Wars, those characters become more integral to the story, but just the premise that the droids are the way we get into the adventure of Star Wars has always been sort of, I've heard the C-3PO and R2-D2 compared to Laurel and Hardy, you know, different comedy teams. But when you watch the first 5 minutes of this movie, you basically get the first 5 minutes of when C-3PO and R2-D2 are on Tatooine from Star Wars, because they fight, they bicker, they're mean to each other, they say awful things to each other, they split up, and then circumstance immediately throws them back in together, and then they're on this big adventure. And I think that is kind of like, even if that was all it was, I would have noticed it. But the other thing I noticed was the wipes, the screen wipes, the transitions. That felt very Star Wars too. So anyway, not to make that the whole conversation, just to say that was a reason this movie loomed large. I'd always heard it referenced because it was a Kurosawa film and because of the Lucas connection. So yeah, it was one that I'd always wanted to watch. And I guess I'll throw it to you guys after I just say one more thing about it, which is that I thought, like, I don't know if this was just the whatever the cleaned up Criterion transfer that I was watching on not Amazon, on Max, but I thought this movie looked amazingly crisp and like not just like, oh, it's an old movie and they've scanned it and they've improved it in some way. It really did just look like this was a really well photographed movie for its time. Some of those details really popped. And I'm sure there's plenty of older movies, if they got treated with the right care, that I would say that about. But I was consistently immersed in the visual world of this movie and the compositions. There's one behind me right now. Just, it was full of really fun, interesting compositions. And I think that was another thing that, again, felt kind of Star Warsy to me, because one thing I think George Lucas is good at is like it's unspoken talent for sort of locking the camera and setting up really cool shots, you know, and just with interesting compositions. And so I think the way this movie showed those characters becoming assembled, and then in shots, just there was a lot of like visual storytelling with like, what are the roles of these characters? You could kind of tell by these kind of tableaus that are constantly, you know, cutting to throughout the movie. So yeah, I enjoyed this movie. What did you think, Ronald?
I think I'm just kind of convinced that I may have to buckle down and maybe watch all of his movies.
Yeah, I kind of had a similar feeling.
You know what I mean? Like
it's a little bit of a blind spot, like, admittedly, and I'm kind of ashamed to say that. Like, I feel like I've only seen like two or maybe two before this, and then reading about this, you just start reading about, like, you know, the troupe of actors that he always worked with, and like even the ones in this had already done so many films. It's like, wow, I mean, that may sound silly to say to somebody who's very familiar, but like, to me, I was not. I mean, I know the name and the brand and like the legend of, but yeah, watching this and I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just saying I definitely had the same feeling of like, this seems like an opportunity right now to be like, this is kind of like a gateway again to take that opportunity.
Yeah, it's just something about, you know, I've seen like Rand and a couple others, but like I think there's just been this kind of thought that maybe there's been this big evolution in filmmaking, and yeah, sure. I mean, there has been some, but like storytelling at its very basic level has existed forever. You know what I mean? And seeing the chances that he took, just the camera angles, just there had to have been some level of danger to filming some of this, like even the mountainous portions.
Ronald, I don't want to interrupt your thought, but when you talk about danger, that shot of the two groups of like workers or whatever coming up and down the stairs at the beginning, like, and they were kind of like, I was watching that going, there's no way that wasn't scary to film.
Right.
Because these are guys wearing like little diapers just running around, and it's muddy and slippery. And part of the scene is they're supposed to be slipping and sliding and running into each other. But to your point, Ronald, this was like a beautifully arranged shot. The production design is insane. And there were like 400 people on screen or something like that. It was kind of insane. Anyway, I just wanted to add to that thought of like, yes, this movie has like wild levels of production value to it.
Yeah. And I don't know what the budget for this thing was. There were so many people, and I guess probably what the pitch was you're gonna be in a Kurosawa movie. Like this is like a huge deal. So like I know that some people are like, I'll do it. It doesn't matter.
I'll get trampled in the mud for that guy.
Yeah. And then come on, man. Like, so all this talk about killing the princess, and then we meet the princess, and we're like, oh, she's breathtaking. She has like this she's yelling constantly. I mean, that's one of the things that's very troublesome. She is screaming.
She is amped up. So are our two leads. I didn't mention their names, but Tahai and Madashichi.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're very amped up too. Like they're constantly kind of yelling on the verge of tears, and she's very amped up. So it's a very intense cast.
yeah, and like every scene, she's like, "If they come over to me, we will fight them forever and ever." I'm like, "Oh my god!" But I loved her heart, man. And then it hit me like a ton of bricks at the end when everybody got captured, and she's just like, I'm glad to have gone on this adventure.
Yeah.
I'm glad to have,
and starts like doing that chant.
Oh my God, man. That hit me like a ton of bricks.
I mentioned Star Wars. This is obviously the movie that inspired the Fire Festival too.
Yeah. The Fire Festival.
Well, that's what they were calling it. It's like, we're going to the Fire Festival, and I was going like, turn back. You don't want to be stuck there.
This isn't good.
This is a different Fire Festival. This one went well.
All of your valuables are going to be gone, and that's exactly what happened.
That's true. They did lose their cart. The
funny part was them trying to fight the guy from like he's like, whoa, stop. And like punching him in the side, like, put it in the fire. It's like, God, man, this movie had so much action to it, and everything kind of paid off. I think that's what was really cool, like the tension between the characters, and not for nothing, man. The samurai, what's that guy's name?
Toshiro Mifune.
Toshiro. A lot of face acting. Just
his face is insane.
Incredible. Like,
in fact, for viewers, let me see if I can I can switch to a different background image just so we can get some good Toshiro Mifune into the scene.
Yeah.
I can. There you go.
Oh man. There were times
you need to follow us on the YouTube channel to see what John's throwing out right now. That's kind of it.
But like, I think that's his thing. I love it when you see an old actor like that from that era, and you realize, the actors. It's almost like every actor had a thing. It's a little bit like, it's like the Rock doing the eyebrow or something like that. Yep. It's like if you saw Toshiro Mifune in a movie, you wanted him to look like that. You wanted him to look pissed off, like he's about to eat somebody's face.
God, he bullied them so much in that movie, man. And I loved it. I loved every second of it.
Well, he bullied them, and he sent his little sister off to die in place of the princess. That shit was that was
rough.
Insane. But I mean, that added to the princess, right? Her character later when she's saying, "I like, go ahead, kill me, stop that," like, or like she didn't want all this to keep happening around her just to save her. Yeah. I thought that was a cool aspect of the princess's story, but it was really bleak to ponder that's what what's his name, Rokuroda, the Mifune character, what he had to do. I will say this also about that character: never have like short shorts, a little jumper with short shorts. Never has a guy made that look as badass as he makes his outfit look. He's showing a lot of thigh, and it looks good.
So much thigh.
Yeah.
Especially when he goes to the other village. He's like, it's you. And he's like, let's fight right now. He's like, no, you talk that shit. Let's fight right now. And then he's like, all right. I get why you're as famous as you are.
Well, I mean, honestly, that guy was a great character because he goes through this whole thing of the shame of not getting killed, and he says you think it's a good thing not to kill your foe, but actually, and then he ends up getting beaten and has a horrible facial scar. But I like the way that guy became it was like Star Wars or Wizard of Oz or anything like that, where that guy then becomes part of their crew after this thing, you know.
Yeah, I would love to see a part 2 of this, man. I loved all the characters. Like, they were so heartfelt and funny. And
I was gonna say the funny part was like the thing that surprised me the most, because I feel, I don't think that's in what I've seen of Kurosawa. Like, that's not what I expected from this, and not having seen this or really heard much about it was like the comedy element of it. I was, more drama, action, epic adventure, I guess, was on my mind. But I mean, almost from right when the movie starts, it's like there's a lot of just kind of hijinks among the peasants, and even some of the interchanges between the general and the princess with them. But like, I just think that was one of the things that surprised me the most, because it is pretty funny. There's a lot of kind of comedic moments, and the peasants really the idea of like the movie kind of being from their perspective, I think, is what makes it work so well. And I mean, and if you think about even the Star Wars comparison, like the scenes that talk about R2-D2 and C-3PO, like anything that they're involved in, it's like you can't help, you're almost forced to feel the perspective of them, because it's just like kind of chaotic. Like their perspective is always chaotic. Like there's nothing that they're doing that's usually calm. So like when these two peasants are around, it's like that's their energy almost constantly. So even if it's something serious or action, or there's a big action sequence happening, their play in it is still almost always kind of like, God, they're so silly, and
they don't have any real game or any angle.
There's no clue.
Really.
They're just like, they wandered into this craziness, and like they're just like still as kind of bumbling as they were to get themselves captured to begin with. It's just like, it's just, that works really well. I mean, that was really the surprise to me. But yeah, this was a really great watch.
Well, there's a couple of things I love about that. Like Rokuroda, I love the way once they're under his wing, they start calling him boss.
Yeah.
I just love that. I just love. I think I just notice when a character calls another character boss, and I just love it. Like, it just seems like such a subtle little writing note, but it's such an obvious thing. These guys are kind of like you said, Steve. They're sort of knuckleheads. They need like a big brother almost to keep him out of trouble. There's a moment when he first shows up and they're fighting about finding the gold and stuff, and he's just like lurking in the background. It's so funny. I mean, it was almost kind of creepy, but it was also very funny because he's wearing those short shorts and he's just standing there. But there's a scene where he comes up to their fire and starts poking at it, and I love it. They both try to do the same thing and then wilt in the same way. One of them goes, "Hey," and then he turns with this face and looks at him, and he goes, "Oh, nice day, isn't it?" And then the other one's like, "Let me get this." And he's like, "Hey." And then he turns and looks at him and he's like, "Oh, you like the fire?" It's like they both like have their moment of trying to stand up to him and then instantly melting. I just thought that was a great thing. But also I thought it was really funny that towards the end of the movie, they're like trying to turn the princess and Rokuroda into the other soldiers. Like late in the movie, their big play is to go and try to betray them, and they ended up getting laughed at and just walking away. I just love that never is really answered for it. It's not like they really get a comeuppance for being like you're saying, this kind of street level character that's just trying to figure out what they can do in this chaos. But the fact that they're kind of morally shaky, I think is I don't know. It just adds to the humor. They almost reminded me in that sense of like Coen Brothers heroes, where you're watching them kind of stumble over their own feet constantly,
Yeah.
But no, I'm glad you guys enjoyed it. I definitely had the experience of like, oh yeah, this is one of those. I even kind of mentioned this of like, this might be one of those movies that everyone seems to think this is a good movie and it's kind of revered as a classic. So it might just be an example of a movie where you watch it and you go, "Oh yeah, this is this is really good," but this really was good. And I had the same Kurosawa thought you had of like, "Oh, I probably have some blind spots here with him as far as like as we found when we watch these older movies. It's really fun to find the level of sophistication and entertainment value that a lot of people might think you don't get in movies before." The last 40, 50 years maybe. But there's so much, like the early traces of all that inventiveness and cinematic tools that we love now. It's all there, except like you said, Ronald, it's just, you had to be bold. Some of those shots, like even just up on a hillside, like, and the camera kind of tilts down and you're getting this vertiginous sense of like they're up on a hill and soldiers are coming up the hill. Some of those shots were orchestrated insanely well and were beautiful. And so often you watch an old movie and you can see the level of difficulty, but you don't really get the beauty out of it. You know what I mean? You're like, I can see that was the best they could do, but it doesn't really look great by today's standards. But some of the shots in this were beautiful by today's standards.
Yeah.
And I don't think it had much CGI in it. I was looking in the end credits to see the thing that says this movie did not use generative AI, but I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
You didn't notice when the guy fell up the hill? It's like
with rubber limbs.
Cool.
All right. Oh, by the way, I thought it was great when that little girl used that rock to stop those two guys from raping the sleeping princess.
Yeah.
That scene was insane.
Clutch.
Like, the fact that was even on their minds.
I think old movies just don't know how to handle that stuff. You watch stuff before a certain date, and they just didn't know how not to have, like, rapey behavior in it,
I guess that's the whole thing, like the ego of a conqueror. You, like, come into a space, you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be taking some butts right now. It's like, is this just the strategy?
I'm gonna be taking some butts.
Taking some butts. This is the way that works.
That's an Alexander the Great quote, right?
Yeah. And thou said, I shall come to your town and taketh thou butt and mouth. So it's just the way that it was, man.
Different time.
So
on that note, Ronald, what's our next pick for required viewing?
Man, Catholicism, right?
Right.
Uh-oh.
I was raised Catholic. And, I Pope Mobile, all that stuff was really fascinating to me. And this, when this came up, Vatican drama really is one of those things that is high on my list. And I never got to see this movie. Conclave is going to be my pick.
Nice.
Woo! And I hope that most of you haven't seen it yet.
I just watched it. However, I'm so glad that we get to do a whole segment on it next week rather than me just talking about it for 2 minutes or whatever.
Cool. Much agreed.
Yeah, no, I'd watch it again gladly. It's
okay.
It's
Steve,
like,
have you seen it?
No, but I actually was planning on watching it like tomorrow. So.
Do you guys like watching great actors deliver really intelligent dialogue in a scene that's like well shot and like beautifully set decorated?
I love it.
Check.
Yeah.
You'll like this movie then.
Okay, good.
I mean, it is 2 solid hours of like great conversation and great, like you're talking about, Ronald, like thought-provoking shit that like makes you see how weird Catholicism is. Like this movie really made me think about how weird it is. So
yeah, it's
cool.
It's a strange thing, It's like so I'm super curious to see how they handle the drama of it all.
Like your approach to getting a possible top 10 movie seen by all.
Gotta do it.
Look at it.
Yeah. Gotta do it. Yeah. So I feel like if I'm gonna try to push the issue of us having a top 10 earlier, may as well throw in
Ronald,
something
that's great.
that can be in our top 10.
That's what we would call at Apple when we worked there a best practice.
/ surprise and delight.
Surprise and delight. I still use the method of what did they call it?
Approach.
The shit sandwich.
Fearless feedback. The shit sandwich approach. Fearless. I love saying to someone like, I totally feel that you needed to completely fuck up this assignment the way that you did, and I want you to know I acknowledge that you made that choice, and I just think it's great that you made a choice, and I applaud that. But it was terrible. You know, I mean, like that's just.
But do you get permission first, John?
Yeah.
I get them to sign a permission slip early in the year so that I just have blanket permission. I'm speaking of my job as a teacher, but I guess in all situations, you don't know this, I make people sign a permission slip when I come into a room.
It's smart. It's smart, man.
I feel like people started to become like Voldemort with that whole thing. Just
Which
like,
part? You mean not having a nose and
the whole like
trying to kill kids?
People just like
feedback.
You are terrible. End of it.
You just made me picture a mashup of Ray Fiennes' character from Conclave and Voldemort, and now I want to see Voldemort in
what if
Conclave.
He says, Harry Potter, the boy who lives.
You know, there is a post-credit scene
to die.
Where it ties together. You shouldn't have voiced that, John. Spoiler.
Well, that's great.
Ball, the boy who lives.
Well, it's good timing because it came out on VOD, so it's digital, so everybody should watch with us. So, or if it's in a theater near you, go see it there too. Still, but I'm looking forward to Conclave. What else have you guys seen, man? Like, let's just talk about what we've seen over the past couple weeks. Again, it's been a few weeks. What do we got? Who wants to jump first?
Has anybody been watching Skeleton Crew?
I've watched the first 3 episodes of it. Yeah.
Steve?
I watched the first episode.
Yeah.
Anybody want to share some thoughts on Skeleton Crew?
I'm in for it, man. Like, the only thing I think of is I just want to say fun, you know, and it's nothing you original or unique, but like everybody's saying, you know, the Amblin of it all and Goonies meets Star Wars or whatever you want to say to hook someone. I think it's pretty appropriate. And I think so far beyond Andor and maybe the majority of Mandalorian, it's probably the most enjoyable time I've had watching one of the Star Wars shows.
Yeah.
You know, personally.
What do you think, Ronald?
From
the first episode.
A lot of chemistry. I think
is it chemistry or chemistry?
Chemistry.
Which one are we talking here? Okay, that's what I thought you meant.
Chemistry. There's something about like just the whole dynamic of like, I don't want to say absentee father because that's not what it is. It's just, you know, I come from a family that had very hardworking parents that worked so much that there was a lot of trouble that I could get into.
Sure.
So when I see this kid, you know,
not you, Ronald, not you, anyone but you.
When I see this kid, like I see myself in him, you know, the latchkey kids of the world.
I was gonna say latchkey kids, yeah.
Latchkey kids. It's just like, or like kids that had like aunts that were just like aunts and grandmas and stuff that just be like, yeah, just come back before, you know, the sun goes down. It's just like whatever you can do in between that. You'd have so much danger. Your shirt would be ripped in two. You'd be breathing heavy. Your eye would be black. You
come back bleeding, but like I'm really just fine. I'm fine.
Yeah. I'm fine. I'm good. But you have the best time of your life because you're running that. My friend. God, man, I lived in the city, so there was a crazy amount of dogs when I was a kid. That people talk about it a lot, but there was an absolute terrorizing level of dogs.
There used to be roving packs of like stray dogs when I was a kid too. Like, it was
you would
a thing.
Like come down the street and you'd see dogs. Like you just see them.
You wouldn't go down that street. You'd like try it, and you and your friends would be like, "No, we're going around. It's Dogtown. Leave it, Jack. Leave it, Jake."
What my friend would do, Darrell, would not only go down one of these blocks, he'd open the gate of one of these dogs named Fila that would just chase us to the end of the earth. And I learned to jump on cars so that I didn't get bit. That was like the first thing I'd do. Like, I know that people are pissed looking out the window like, what the fuck is this kid doing? Because I jump on a car because I didn't want to get bit.
The James boy is on our car again.
Goddamn piece of trash, kid. But yeah, it was like hijinks, just like ridiculous things you'd experience as a kid. And this show feels like that. This like real high tension trouble that you can get into as a little kid. People forget how big a trouble you could get into as a little kid when you just go out with a bunch of friends.
Well, I mean, I think the show does.
The show.
Yeah, the show does tap into that. Like, I think that what is interesting about it is, and you kind of said this, Steve. It is Amblin meets Star Wars. It is Goonies in space, but it's good. Yeah. Like, let's forget. Like, so take away that and just say it's good. The acting is good. The writing is pretty darn good. Yeah. The story is pretty interesting. There's like a mystery that is actually kind of interesting behind the planet that they're on and what's happening there. And it's leaning hardcore into being like a pirate story, like a boy's adventure pirate story kind of thing. You've got an actor like Jude Law bringing a certain kind of charm to it, a certain kind of weight to it. Even Carrie Condon. I mean, there's a lot of really good adult performances that can occur in this story and still be kind of a kids thing. I think it was Spielberg that said he didn't make kids movies. He made movies for everyone that had kids in them, or he made movies with kid protagonists, but he didn't make kid movies. And right. I would say this does feel a tiny bit kiddie, but it not in a way that makes it feel anything less than like PG. You know what I mean? It's like, it doesn't feel like you're watching like sanitized, super clean stuff. I actually think there may even be some surprises and some connections that might come up in the show. Not that I want to see like cameos, but I'm talking about just the size of the story and the importance of it. I see all kinds of ways it can spread out, but this is what I've been wanting. I mean, I remember saying this about Solo, which is like, oh, this is the kind of fun movie I wanted Star Wars to be when I was a kid, you know? And Andor is the kind of like intrigue that I kind of wanted to see. And this is just like you said, Steve, this is like, oh, a good entry in the Star Wars, you know, like if you want to look at the canon of stories that they're putting together, this feels different and it's well done and it's entertaining. And to me, when I watch something like this, I feel that Star Wars baggage just start to fall off of my body. I agree with
you 100%.
I'm like, oh, this is a clear story with characters you latch onto. And within a couple minutes, you figure out, oh, like Neil, the little elephant boy, he's probably maybe a breakout character on this show. But like the idea of Star Wars throwing in something silly and something heartwarming. And you said, Ronald, this thing, it relates to real behavior. Like this kid's not just in Star Wars with like a dad who's really busy, but his dad is in TV on the radio. So it's like, it's really tricky, you know? That guy tours and he's like a space businessman or something. I can't quite tell. But I just think that it's like, it's fun. And we haven't really said this yet. We've said Amblin, we've said Goonies. The way they visually represent the idea of suburbs in Star Wars is so cool looking and so charming and so full of fun details. And you just go, oh yeah, we haven't quite seen this from Star Wars yet. And I think that used to be kind of the point of anything new Star Wars, was to say, well, you haven't seen this yet. You haven't seen a planet that's all mushrooms. You know, you haven't seen this, you haven't seen that. But now they're doing like I don't know, just relatable social stuff that you haven't seen yet. So it's not like, oh, if you hate Star Wars, this is the show that's going to win you over. I think this is a really good show for people that enjoy the kind of potential. And I think the word fun is the right word. If you have to come up with one word for this, I think fun, and then maybe even like exciting.
That's great. Yeah.
Like those kids when the ship starts taking off at the end of the first episode and they're going into hyperspace.
Jumps,
I got like the good kind of goosebumps, like the kind of thing where I wish my son was 8 again and not 17 or about to be 17, because like now he's like, yeah, I'll watch that eventually. But you know, I think he would have eaten up this kind of adventure story when he was younger. And I still have that you know, I said I relate to Neil. I have that kind of dorky kid who doesn't want to get in trouble but still wants to have a little bit of excitement. I've got that kid inside me. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I haven't watched the third episode yet, though, but I thought the first two were pretty darn solid.
Cool.
What else? Oh, I saw Heretic. Have you seen that yet, Ronald? No,
I want to.
Ooh. It was really good. I mean, it's well written. Talk about well written and well acted. I think you said, Steve, it goes a little wonky in the last section.
Yeah.
But it's not like it gets bad. It's just, it takes a few turns that you're like, for a while, it feels like it's building up to some really thematically satisfying kind of movie, and it ends up being more of a twisty-turny, kind of creepy movie. Like at the end, I didn't have a real clear sense of the sort of moral dilemma that I was having as the movie was unfolding. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but I think you said it. Like Hugh Grant's great, and I wish I had the actresses' names on the tip of my tongue, but they're both incredible. And just the scenario of the movie, like it really is like a play. So. Ronald, when you see it, maybe we'll do a little bit more of a spoilery chat about it. But I think it's great that Hugh Grant has aged into this new phase of his career where he can just be charming, and you can shoot him in a creepy way, and he's the creepiest man in the world.
What else? Trying to think what I watched. It's on digital now. I watched Here. Either of you seen that? Zemeckis's with Tom Hanks and Robin Wright.
Tell us how it worked.
I actually liked it, man. I got to tell you, like, I'm a sucker. I guess I'm a sap. I don't know. The whole removing your opinion or feelings about like the de-aging and the tech that Zemeckis has tried to pioneer or be on the front of for decades at this point. But I just like it worked for me. I felt like the idea of the camera kind of just sitting still and going through time and it jumping around in time, but really following different versions of or different timelines and families and but keeping consistent themes of like love and privilege and basically a dream. It really worked for me. I mean, it was kind of thing where I was like, put it on one night, and Aaron was like sort of interested in watching it, and we don't watch a ton of movies together anymore, but like she kind of got pulled in and watched the whole thing with me and really enjoyed it as well. And I mean, just love Tom Hanks. Anything he's in, I'll watch. But I was kind of surprised how much I liked it, because I don't think it got like great reviews. I can't remember how it was received. I know it didn't like really do any business at the box office, but the whole like shtick of like the camera not moving and boxing out the same scene of a piece of land in this town, state, country, and just kind of going over different periods of time. It's kind of corny at times, but I'm okay with that. And some really great performance. Honestly, actually, what's his name? Oh my God, why am I blanking?
Paul Bettany.
Oh. Yeah, Paul Bettany is really good in it. Like I didn't even realize he was going to be as prominent in the movie as he was. But he plays the father, like the Tom Hanks's character in the film. And it's just like a really solid movie, man. Like I don't know, it really worked on me. It's like it's not like all positive. I don't know. There's something about the story that like nothing. There's not all happy endings in that idea of like not all happy ending of like all of the lives and stories that you hear in your day-to-day life. But if in this movie, it's, this idea of like this physical space, like when it's a house, when it's not a house, when it's in, Native Americans, and, it goes even back to the dinosaur age, and, and that's kind of like how the movie opens. It's barely there, but I really appreciated like, all the stories not ending positively, like the impact on life and how not everything works. But yeah, it surprised me how much I liked it. But that's on demand. And I also watched Juror Number 2.
Oh, I've been wanting to see that.
Which again kind of shocked me. Like I'm kind of hot and cold and hit or miss with Eastwood. I've
just been hearing nothing but good things about this one.
I don't know what Warner Brothers or Max or what they completely botched this movie. I don't understand why they basically didn't release it. Like they put it in a couple theaters, didn't promote it at all, didn't even report box office on it. This was a really surprising movie that I thought was very good. And like in 1993, this movie would have made $300 million. Like this is like a courtroom drama, moral challenging thriller suspense movie.
Sounds so watchable to
me. Incredible cast. I mean,
sounds so watchable.
As with a lot of Eastwood's films, there's some like some of the screenplays not great. There's some weird line deliveries. Like there's some odd things here and there that
like everybody's always saying, "Go ahead, punk, make my day."
Right, like weird shit like that. Yeah,
it's so weird that he can't get away from that.
Gotta have it in every movie. But yeah, like just really. I mean, again, you got Nicholas Hoult, Toni Collette, Chris Messina, who else is it? Kiefer Sutherland,
Jesus,
J.K. Simmons.
I was waiting for you to name somebody that hasn't like made me fall back before,
Yeah,
because they're such a good actor. And
yes.
every name you've added was like,
And
oh
I'm just
yeah,
like, and I
they've
mean,
killed me too.
from little roles, like little people pop up here and there, like a really quick scene. But I mean, it's just a weird thing to me, like because I guess I had low expectations because again, I kind of, especially more recent Eastwood, I haven't really loved. But the story really intrigued me when I found out what the movie was about. I was like, this could be really interesting and like really kind of like morally challenging. And the way that the characters play that is really effective. Um, it's not perfect. It's not an amazing film, but it is way better than the credit it's been given. I mean, I think critics actually have been very kind to it. And the audience score is really high. Like everybody that I know that I recommended it to over the last week and a half or last week it's been out, have like really liked it. Like both my parents loved it. I mean, like I'm talking just age things. It's because it's got that like down the middle, not too challenging, not too questionable, not too extreme. You know what I mean? Like it's just got like a topic that I feel like, again, in the 90s, these movies were coming out every other week, like these courtroom dramas. There's a murder or there's a, who did what is really not the mystery of this movie, but it's more of the moral dilemma of it. But I would definitely, I mean, again, both of these movies I liked, but Juror number two was really surprising to me, and that one specifically because like it seemed like the studio had like an active mandate to like bury the movie.
Yeah.
Like you guys saw the reports of this stuff. Like they wouldn't report box office. They put it in like 12 theaters. Like it was a very odd. They did no like awards consideration stuff for it. Where I don't know that it's an awards movie, but I feel like the narrative around it was a little different. It might have been, but yeah, it was really entertaining and really good. And I'm really excited to see. Like I really like Nicholas Hoult. Like I'm excited to see him in Nosferatu. And I'm going to probably go see this weekend that he's got a movie out with Jude Law called The Order that I've heard is great. So he's got like kind of like a nice little run going right now. So, but he was really good in this movie. I've seen a couple other ones, but what have you guys seen? Ronald, have you seen anything specific or anything?
Yeah, I got a chunk of animation stuff I've seen. So Transformers 1. I enjoyed it, man. It was fun. It was light but heavy at the same time. It's goofy, but I feel like there's too many celebrities in this movie. I feel like sometimes
like
again,
Megatron, Optimus Prime.
Yeah, I just want some
names.
regular. I just want some regular voice actors in it, not some celebrities that are like taking over for big voice actors from the 80s. So weird.
I think those times are over, right? I mean, like,
yeah,
I don't know, like, because I feel like some of those movies just don't get made.
Yeah, they need the names. They need the names attached.
They think
to
that the names actually mean anything.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, remember how for a while there, every animated movie, the trailer was pretty much like the name of the person coming up and then like a quick shot of their animal or whatever. Yes. And it's always like, I think maybe sometimes that would be like, oh, cool, that person was actually good in that. But so often that never added to the cachet of an animated movie.
No. Wild Robot.
Oh, yeah. You mentioned that really got you.
Masterpiece.
It's incredible.
It's
really
incredible.
Is.
Man, like.
No, I need to see it.
Tearjerker. I cried so much. There was a point. So, Aaron's niece came over. She was crying. She's 13 and like too tough, and she was like, I can't do this. She thought it was so emotional. Next up,
it's also gorgeous. Like,
yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, the animation is like astoundingly beautiful.
The fact that Shrek is going to be done in this animation style,
great. Yeah, well, because this is what they did with this is what they used for Puss in Boots.
Yeah,
the last one,
which I still need to see.
Another good movie.
It was incredible.
It's one of my favorite animated movies of that year. The Last Wish or something it was called. Yeah. Watchmen Chapter 2. Finished that. Man, you talk about good. Like it, it took everything from the movie, that a lot of people got mad at. It's as comics accurate as it could be. I mean, there was a little tweaks, but for the people that wanted to see the ending from the comic, you got it. Are you
Oh, cool.
satisfied, you pieces of shit? Watch it.
See, I still want to see that. We did the first part as part of required viewing, so I was kind of thinking I didn't even notice that the date that this part 2 had come out, because I thought we would all be required to watch it together. But now I can just watch it at my leisure.
So good, so good. And then 2 more things I wanted to mention. Oh, maybe more than 2. Creature Commandos. The new DC stuff. I mean,
that's the first like official thing from the new James Gunn run DCU.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the beginning of it. Make no mistake, this is a directly attached to Suicide Squad. So you know the way that people are like, this is Suicide Squad with monsters. It is. I mean, it's purposefully done that way. They talk about the Suicide Squad. They're like, hey, this is just a monster version of this. The Suicide Squad failed on some level. And I think that they're tying in some of the parts of like Peacemaker and stuff like that. You can hear some of the story things kind of moving along. I think it's fun. It's vulgar. It's ridiculous. I'm in. I don't know if I would have started the whole DCU with an animated thing, but I'm enjoying it. I think it's really well done.
So is it just a question real quick. Is this James Gunn wrote these, directed these? Like, what did he do?
They
with
literally in the beginning, when they talk about the cast, they say written by James Gunn. There's an animated James Gunn at a desk.
Oh,
and they show him.
Wow.
Right. I've never seen him represented in that way, and I think
I heard people talking about that, saying, is it wise for him to attach his face to it when he's getting so much criticism? I mean, not to say that he should care about it, but there's so many people that are ready for him to flop. So it's all the let's say it's all the Snyder Bros that are like, like if you look at what's happening on social media with James Gunn versus those guys, they can't let it go. Anything that any news item about DC stuff, they're always like, James Gunn has fucked it up again, or this is proof James Gunn's trying to tank the DCU or whatever. And it's just like, I feel like it was a very bold thing for him in that climate, in that atmosphere, to put his face front and center. And it feels a little bit almost not quite on brand for James Gunn to be narcissistic like that. But I think what I read was that the animators, he supposedly didn't, like, they did that to sort of surprise him, and then he said, well, that's funny, let's leave it in. But it does feel like weird to cast it right out of the gate as like, this is James Gunn's DCU. You know what I mean? Like that feels it's very really in your face. In your face, Snyder Bros.
They show the cast, but it's like the whole cast, and then in the end, they're like written by James Gunn, and they show him. Yeah, like it's crazy. It's like such a strange thing. It matches the tone of the show. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about was the anthology, the part 1 of the Secret Level anthology that's done by the same people that did Love and Robots on Netflix.
Oh, wow.
This thing isn't perfect, I mean, by any means, but it is, these like slices of these video game stories. Not perfect. There's some ones that are really, really good, and then some that are like, there's a lot of like Russian doll things going on. Like a lot of people are like, hey, why don't we play on the idea that you're in a video game and you die a bunch of times? There's like 7 of those out of the 18, and I can't figure out why they didn't say like, hey, we have some things that we're not going to touch on, or we're going to touch on, but that's touched on quite a bit. But it's solid. It's fun to see some things. Some of these movies some of these shorts may even make you watch or play some of the video games that they're talking about. One of them, funny enough, is a game that Amazon funded that got canceled. So it's like this one called Concord. When you get to that one, Concord doesn't exist anymore. It was supposed to come out. It flopped in the first month. Amazon put like $500 million into it.
Jesus.
And now it's not going to exist anymore. So
sounds right. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds about right. Because everybody's trying stuff and it doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's my chunk of animated stuff. I got Transformers, Wild Robot, Watchmen Chapter 2, Creature Commandos, and Secret Level. So that's I've been watching a lot of animation.
Unless anybody has anything else they want to talk about, I have my little let's get physical segment, and then I'll be done.
Yeah, let me just go through a couple more real quick. I got a quick ritz for you. I'm gonna go. Did not like, liked, loved.
Oh yeah. Okay. There's one you did not like that I actually want to hear you talk about for a minute.
Did not like Y2K, which really bummed me out.
Right, because we're Kyle Mooney heads on this show. We like Kyle Mooney on this show.
Brigsby Bear fans. I have a physical copy of Brigsby Bear. Bear.
Unite. I'm there, dude. Like I got the card, but I don't know. This movie.
Dang.
I don't know. There's something about it that just doesn't work. I don't know if it's the cast or relying too heavily on like the nostalgia jokes that like I feel like maybe a lot of people may not even get. But honestly, like once the movie goes into the machines are alive or the machines are coming together and Y2K is real, like that I mean, to be honest with you, like the whole angle of the movie, it just kind of falls apart for me. Like it just wasn't really as funny and as entertaining. My buddy that I met to take to this screening while he was in town, or to go see with while he was in town, literally was like, well, I can now say I've seen my least favorite movie with you. And I was like, wow, dude, that's a little extreme. But I, too, was very disappointed, mainly because the trailer was really great. Again, big Kyle Mooney fan. I love the nostalgia. It's like, that's my time. I just was in the bag for this kind of thing. And it just didn't really work for me. The cast was not great. And there's a character in the movie who is the best part of the movie that surprisingly doesn't make it far into the movie. And that was kind of a letdown because some of the ones that I think didn't work were the ones that you kind of had to stick with the whole film.
I've heard that. Yeah.
I don't want to ruin that, but yeah, it was definitely bummed me out a bit. I liked Moana 2. It's not as good as Moana.
But what a steamroller hit. I mean, like it's made like 600 million already or something like that.
Biggest animated film opening ever. Yeah. I love Moana. It's like, it's a staple in the household here. The music and the film, the characters, everything. This movie is good. Like it's fine. Like I don't understand the trashing on it or like the negativity around it having initiated as like a TV series and pivoted into a film. I mean, that may be visible. There may be seams of that in the movie, but I felt like for the most part, the movie looked great. The songs are nowhere near as good as the first film. But Lin-Manuel Miranda's not involved in this movie. But
he's not. Okay.
No, he's not. I mean, there's a couple catchy songs. My kids are singing the soundtrack. We took them last week to see it, so it's still connecting. It's just not to the same level as Moana. It's still got a great third act. I thought it really kind of comes together there. But yeah, it's perfectly fine, and it's better than that. I mean, it's good. But what I loved was Wicked Part 1. And then Ronald went on about his experience with it. So there's not much more I can say, maybe except for the fact that I got to take my 7-year-old to see it. And what was pretty magical was like the fact that her life is now Elphaba and she like wants everything that has to do with that character. And the songs are constantly playing in my house this past week. But yeah, it was cool to see it with the crowd. Like I went last Friday. It wasn't like an empty screening. I mean, it wasn't sold out like maybe Ronald's was, but it was really cool to kind of feel the energy watching the movie. And I got to say, the performances are just outstanding. Both Cynthia and Ariana are great in the movie. Obviously the songs are pretty great, pretty incredible, which, most people that know the source know that, but the adaptation of those songs sound amazing. The soundtrack is amazing. But the big thing that I want to say about the movie, and like this is just a testament to how effective it is, and just like we see so many things in theaters, and we see movies of all kinds, and they affect us in all different ways. But I don't know in the last year, maybe more than the last year, if the last like 20 minutes of a movie worked as well as the last 20 minutes of a part 1 of like this movie does, I think. And that is a lot of things working in its favor. It's basically the crescendo of the film. It's the action of the film. It's really the kickoff of what the real story of Wicked and part 2 will be. but most importantly, it's defying gravity. You know, like that song in the movie, the number, the moment, the vocal run, you know, all these memeable things that are all over the internet now. A lot of them are coming from the last, like, you know, 20 minutes of the movie. And it's just phenomenal. I can't lie. Like, I had cold chills, definitely shed a tear more than once.
Yeah.
And I got to just give kudos to John Chu. Like the direction is it's just really impressive, man. And again, I don't mean to refer to other decades of filmmaking, but in another decade or another time, this is a movie that wins every award, like at the Oscars. You know, it's a different world now. I don't think that's the case in 2024 of what will happen for this film. I think it will get a lot of nominations, but it's just so entertaining. And for being 2 hours and 40 minutes, it moves. It doesn't feel like it's 2 hours and 40 minutes. But yeah, for me, all I can think about is like the scene, the whole setup with them in the tower, and like the defying gravity moment is genuinely electric. It is incredible.
Yeah.
Especially on the big screen with it turned up loud. It's pretty magical. So yeah, I'm really glad I got to see it in theaters, and again with my daughter and my wife, and you know,
my wife.
Thank you. And Sydney is just completely like enamored by it. Like she's just obsessed, and I love every piece of it. And it's cool too because like she loves The Wizard of Oz. Like she's a huge fan, like my family in general. And for her to be able to see this and be like, oh my gosh, like she literally was like, oh my God, like she's not the bad guy, like she's the good guy. And I was just like, that was like a moment for me because I was just like, man, she gets to experience that now with this movie and whatever movie comes and whatever other Oz stuff that they make, because you know they're going to make a whole universe, I'm sure, of films. But I don't know, it's just exciting. Like it's a moment for sure for movie going, and to have a child who's like putting those pieces together and being like, oh, they hated her for the wrong reasons, just because she was doing what was right. And I was like, wow,
but they
kid.
didn't, right? Because I don't like taking that away from the Wizard of Oz. I don't like making the bad guy. It's an alternate version.
Exactly.
Like I think that's interesting. I think I don't typically like making villains into good guys.
But she hasn't seen part two.
Backstory. No, right. But you know what I'm saying.
She doesn't know what happens in this and why it's different than Wizard of Oz.
Yeah, right.
But she's like the character. She's like, and even the way this movie starts with everyone viewing the character the same way everybody in Wizard of Oz did.
Right.
You know, which is like her introduction to, oh yeah, I know this part of that movie. But when she gets to the end of the part two, which is now I'm excited to watch that with her next year, it'll be what you're describing, John, where it's like, oh, it's not the same. Yeah. But it's kind of cool that it's different. And it's like, this is another take on something. And by the time she sees that, she'll be able to comprehend that in an even more kind of comprehensive way.
I mean, honestly, I think it's interesting you're making that distinction, because it is like, oh, this isn't like the real story. It's like, oh, there's alternate takes, which I think when you're a kid, that's an interesting thing to sort of understand. I think like I'm remembering how like Henry knew that with like different versions of Batman and different versions of Spider-Man, honestly, because it'd be like, oh, this cartoon is this version.
Right.
Then there's this Tobey Maguire movie. Oh, there's this Andrew Garfield movie. Oh, now there's these Tom Holland movies. It's like he was very young already getting like, oh, there's lots of definitive versions of something, you know?
Yeah.
So I think it's interesting to me that Oz could now be, they'll at least try to make Oz into the next extended universe. And there's a lot of fun stuff in the Oz books that they can pull from. I mean, I'd be interested to see what they do, because this is not a strict adaptation, but that opens it up for, there's like 20 characters that could be interpreted in a different way that I don't even think have anything to do with what Gregory Maguire did with the first book.
Right.
Or the only book, right? There's only one Wicked book. Yeah. So yeah. And also they've kind of made the tone, I think, a little bit different. I've heard the book is a bit racier than the musical is. Like the book has more like, you know, adult content, so to speak.
Oh wow!
In it that didn't make it into the musical. So, so yeah. And what I'm saying is, so that's yet another version. Like we've got Wizard of Oz the book, we've got Wizard of Oz the movie,
right?
We've got Wicked the book that reimagines that movie. We've got the musical that reimagines that book. We've got the movie that reimagines totally that musical. It's like there's so many levels.
The layers here. But to Ronald's point, like, you know, my expectations were already kind of super, super high. Your feelings about it made me even more like anticipation because like you were glowing about it.
You were
and
wrong.
and that, not that surprised me at all, but I mean, it was like, wow, like he loved it, and like this is somebody whose opinion I value higher than most. And it was like I
Oh,
went in and
thanks,
I was
man.
like, there's no way this is going to be that good, right? And I was like,
Mhm.
wow, it was really good.
Yeah.
It was really good.
My heart was racing in that last 20 minutes. Like I felt like, and I think about like, the Marvel stuff and how I felt when like, oh, this
Yeah,
dangerous.
yeah,
There's something about like the way that they presented the danger that was happening, the lies that were happening, and all the things that started to shift. It's just like, what is going on? And you feel the tension and things kind of unlocking right in front of you the way that it's happening for these characters and the choices that people make. And
yeah,
it's like it's weird. It's like, and they start thinking about your relationships with people, and it really is unreal how they're able to pull that off like in
yeah.
such a short amount of time.
And the music's amazing and the performance, but I don't want it to be lost. Like I think the direction is incredible.
Yeah.
I think John M. Chu is a special talent, and like In the Heights was incredible, I thought, and it didn't get seen by many. And this is like his next musical that he's a part of, and he's a really talented filmmaker, I think. And there's a couple sequences in this movie that I thought were just incredible. And I mean, it's not a spoiler at all, but like Ronald, like a sequence at the end where she's like kind of on the broom right before the movie ends. It's like this close up of her on the broom flying, and you can see like her body shaking, and there's like that trembling of the
Yeah.
camera, and you hear like the sound, like the sound mix is like indicating like how fast she's going. Like there's just a lot happening right before the movie cuts to black, and I was just really impressed by it. Like it was really, really an awesome time at the movies, which is what we all
Mm,
look for. So yeah, Wicked was awesome.
cool.
Well, I can just about guarantee I'll try to see it before we
Good.
do our year-end
Okay.
Good,
list.
please, please.
But don't be mad at me if it doesn't make my.
It may not. It may not. But I think you should try to check it out. It's there.
No, honestly, I saw a clip of, I guess it's Jonathan Bailey's song from
Yeah.
the movie, and I thought the direction was cool. I did not like the song too much, so I'm wondering if I would like the other songs better, because the song felt just sort of, it's just like the melody. It wasn't grabbing me, But I did.
Yeah.
I was kind of blown away by like the set design and the
It's crazy.
photography. Yeah. Okay, so Ronald's going to get his physical media. He doesn't have too big of a house, so even if he's got to run all the way to the other end of it, so we just have to stall. But yeah, like I think that idea of giant. Well, I mean, and also I've seen photographs of behind the scenes, giant sets
Oh man, massive.
go a long way with me in 2024.
Dude,
Especially
I couldn't
when
agree
it's something
more.
like that where it could easily be totally. You could totally get by with not doing it, and it might look fine. But like, I think that I think everything people are responding to about this movie, the emotions, the performances, everything, I think that stuff is like subconsciously stronger if you have like environments for the actors to step into. Yeah.
Totally agree with you.
Especially when it's these kind of iconic environments that they're reinterpreting for this movie, that like this looks like the Emerald City that we know, but it's still not a replica. Actually, the movie it looks closest to me is Oz the Great and Powerful, which is funny because that's like the only other kind of modern era Oz movie we have. But that movie was like almost 100% CGI, I feel like.
Yeah, definitely.
And also there's somebody, I feel like there's somebody in that movie that we don't see in
Move
movies
on.
anymore.
Yeah, we move on from that certain.
All right. So Ronald, I guess we both have
physical.
something to get physical with here. So
Yeah.
let's get physical.
Yeah. Oh, you going first?
Well, do you want to go first? I was tossing to you, but I can go first if
Okay.
you.
So this is a two-parter.
Uh-oh, just like Wicked.
Yeah, so somebody gave me this. The Last Black Man in San Francisco. And this is the special like A24
Doesn't fit on your shelf with your other movies version.
too high, ridiculously high, like several inches higher than the actual Blu-ray or 4K. And this is like a special thing. Like somebody knew that I loved A24 and was like, hold on. And I'm like, so where did you get this? He's like, well, they gave it to me for my birthday from the A24 Club. So part 2 of this is I joined the club.
Oh yeah. You mentioned
I got to tell you guys about the benefits of it. I know that people look A24. It's called like AA24, and essentially what you get is
it true that we're all fam in the club?
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. For sure. So for $10, you get a zine every week.
Sorry, in the club. I should have said.
In the club, you get a zine every month, printed, sent to you. The first month you get a little pin saying that you're a part of the club. You get $5 put on your membership each month, like you're in jail on your commissary, which is really cool.
Stipend.
Yeah, which can go towards the purchase of anything on their online store. So that's just random. Cool. And then any release that A24 does, you get a free opening weekend ticket. That's cool. And then you get a discount on anything online. I think it's like 10 to 15, depending on the time. Sometimes they raise it up. You also get a lottery ticket that you could win, an astronomical amount of points towards purchasing stuff online. But yeah, I'm sold, man. I'm sold.
And they're sponsoring this episode, right? That was the deal. Okay. This episode brought to you by AAA24.
Yeah. But it's worth every penny.
Am I going to understand it if I don't watch A1 through 23, or is this going to be okay?
you gotta be a completion. You gotta complete it.
Oh, it's just so much time. Okay, I'll do it.
Come on.
You gotta do it. You gotta do it. God dang it.
All right. Is that it for you getting physical?
Yeah. Yes.
All right. So I will now turn off my background so I won't have any awkwardness as I hold up my books that I'm reading right now. I went into a comic book graphic novel hole. So first off, a comic that I think ran between like 2005 and 2008 or so. And it's a 12-issue series that is one of the big, we were mentioning the James Gunn DCU, one of the big inspirations for his version of Superman is supposedly this comic All-Star Superman, which is written by Grant Morrison and illustrated by Frank Quitely. Frank Quitely, you can kind of see from this, he's got this really like very intricate line work, very detailed, very classic sort of style. But it's I also kind of want to say it's really cool that DC is publishing these undersized, they're kind of like paperback sized editions. You get like a 12-issue series. This was only like $10, Ronald. So I know probably you don't use, for $10 you don't usually get
that's
series.
A lot.
So anyway, I'm excited to read that.
That's
supposed to be the basis, like I said, not the sole inspiration, but it's supposed to be like an example of an uplifting story that really leans on Superman being like the ultimate Boy Scout, not one of those like dark revisionist versions of Superman that so many people like to do, where everyone's afraid of him or he's a evil god. This one's supposedly about the goodness in Superman, which again, I think it's cool that that's part of what James Gunn is inspired by. And then also, this is kind of related to, you were talking about your animation dive, Ronald, and you were talking, Steve, about how you feel that perhaps Akira Kurosawa might be a potential deep dive for you, an opportunity to get into somebody's material that you haven't really familiarized yourself with. I feel this way now about the manga artist Junji Ito, who there is a limited series based on this comic, Uzumaki,
started on it.
That's on Max. I think it was on Adult Swim originally or something. But at any rate, it's very surreal and very weird. And when I started to watch it, I was like, you know what? I want to read the comic first. So because the animation on the show is like very closely related to Junji Ito's style. I don't always go for manga. This is pretty much straight ahead horror manga, so it's not like superhero stuff or sci-fi or fantasy stuff. But I find that some manga artists, there is that kind of rigid style of like super cartoony characters that for whatever reason just has not clicked with me in most cases. But Junji Ito's art is a little bit more realistic, so to speak. I mean, manga artists always have amazing backgrounds and scenery and stuff in the art, but this is like a beautifully drawn comic that is just creepy as hell. It reminds me a lot of like David Lynch kind of horror surreal stuff, but it's very I don't know, just creepy get under your skin body horror stuff. And I don't know, from what I've read from this comic, the reason I mentioned it the way I did, Steve, is like I felt myself going, ooh, this Junji Ito guy, he's got, you know, hundreds and hundreds of pages like of material out there that if you start to go, oh, I've just discovered somebody new that I like, and it's not like a new artist that I have to wait 2 years for their next thing. Yeah. I could like almost get too deep into Junji Ito if I'm not careful, you know. But I've already planned out the next couple of comics I'm going to read by him. But yeah, Uzumaki, I really recommend this. This is like a $35 for this book, but this is like a 650 page comic, and you can kind of see. I'll show you just kind of briefly. You can see the like. It's really like it's beautiful line work, and I don't know, really cool stuff where the very fluid, sketchy, intricate line work, not too different in terms of the weight of the lines of that Frank Quitely stuff I was just talking about. But there's something about the black and white nature and just the pen and ink nature of these Junji Ito comics that just feel like there's something kind of classic about them. And I think it's cool that the adaptation, the show, is also a black and white animated show, which is just a cool way to go because the comics really do feel like almost like old Twilight Zone episodes or something. They actually feel like they're in black and white, you know. But that's awesome. Yeah, really creepy stuff. Really, really, and just surreal enough to be kind of dreamlike, but also gross. So we got physical. Physical.
Not too physical.
Yeah, no.
Don't want to go too far.
No, no,
no. Save something for later, fellas. All right, cool. This is exciting. Again, Ronald's pick for next week for required viewing is Conclave, which again is available excuse me, on all the digital platforms for rent or I think it's rent or purchase. But it's
Ronald, what do you think's easier or what do you think's harder, I should say, picking a movie or picking the Pope?
Picking a movie for sure. Picking a movie for sure. No doubt about it.
It's a bigger decision, I think, too.
Absolutely.
There's more good options,
just a matter
probably.
of opinion.
Yeah. My PayPal pick is always right in the back of my brain. So, you know.
You're such a PayPal pleaser.
Oh, boy. All right, so that'll be next week. And then I guess we'll talk some more next week about movies, I'm assuming, right? I don't know if it'll be our top 10 or if that's I don't know when we'll plan that out. We'll have to look at the calendar and actually plan something, but we've already teased it, so we got to make it so. But we won't let you down. Movieschmovie.com is the website. You can go there to listen to past episodes and also jump into the podcast platform of your choice to subscribe if you want to stay up to date on new episodes. We also have a video option, a visual feast, some have said. I don't know if anybody's actually said that, but I'm assuming somewhere someone said that.
Some have said that, yeah.
Yeah. On YouTube, youtube.com/Movie Podcast. You can listen to the podcast there. You can watch the podcast there. And in both scenarios, you can click subscribe and hit a little bell that tells you when new episodes of both come out. And it also has an option there where you get little, shorter videos. Like if you don't want to watch a whole episode or listen to an whole episode, you can kind of get an idea of what we like to talk about, and just got to take a little slice of the pie, see how you feel about it, and then go for the whole thing. Come back later.
That's what you do with a pie, right?
Yeah,
you take one slice, and you go back and eat the whole pie.
There'll still be more. I mean, you can help yourself. I mean, who hasn't eaten a whole pie at night, right? Me? Anybody? No.
I don't do it at night. I do it like early in the morning, technically.
So you can feel like shit all day.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the
morning. But yeah, thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week, and as always, you made our day. Thanks.